the ruined city of Belendraden. Belendraden? I think. I'm gonna go with Belendraden. It's basically a romance with fairies in it. Obviously, I think that they fall in love. Enemies to lovers kind of vibe we're getting across here. No! What the heck? Does that make sense? I got that vibe from the prologue. No, from the blurb. So this sounds kind of similar-esque to The Cruel Prince, where we have, you know, a cruel prince. Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is Kizzy and today I have got a rather exciting video. It's time to get ready for the best releases of 2023. I'm just going to do the releases of January, February, March. So it's the first 3 months and then I'll do another one close to the time for the next 3 months. I'll do them quarterly. And these are not my personal, although my personal ones are included. These are not my personal ultimate anticipated releases. This is more of a general kind of comprehensive list of books, fantasy books in particular, coming out in 2023. I split the video into two, so I'm going to be doing adult fantasy and then YA fantasy releases, and I'll be going through those two categories month by month, so January, then February, then March. I have, I think, about 22 books here on my list to tell you about coming up. Some of them are sequels to trilogies and series and all those kind of things, so if you haven't read those, then they're probably a bit useless to you. But they might introduce you to a new series that you haven't read before, so I'm going to include them anyway. Let's get into the video. So I'm going to begin with the adult books coming out. These are all fantasy books, by the way, so if you're a contemporary reader, this might not be the video for you. So the first book we have coming out on January 10th is Lost in the Moment and Found, and that is the 8th in this series, the Wayward Children series by Seanan McGuire. These books, you can technically read them on a standalone basis. Each one follows their own protagonist, however they are obviously linked through this school that they all live in. The Wayward Children series is set in a school where children who have come back from portal fantasies struggle to kind of readjust with the world, and they all come together in the school and like they kind of have to get through the issues that they had, or like kind of the fantasy elements being lacking in the world, that kind of thing, all together in the school. As I said, you can read them all out of order. However, my friend who's read the series recommends that you at least start with the first one, which is Every Heart's Doorway, because that sets a lot of the world building and groundwork and kind of just builds the foundation of the series basically. And then after that, I think you can pretty much choose which order you read them in. It's completely up to you. As I said, this is the 8th one in this series. So this one is about a girl who I think works in a shop called Where the Lost Things Go, and this is where everything that you've lost ever goes. The socks, the watches, the bags, everything goes there. However, when her father dies, she becomes herself a little bit lost, and then physically lost. She actually becomes lost. I think it's quite actually pessimistic. It seems like that anyway from the blurb, but not everything is okay, not everything happens for a reason, and you know, not all the doors that she goes through are going to be the right ones. So she has to kind of come to terms with growing up a little bit, coming and facing the realities of loss and the heartbreak that that can cause, and the decisions in life that you have to take sometimes. Next we have another one in a series. This is the second book in a duology, and this is by Leah Bardugo. Also comes out on January 10th, and that is Hellbent. So it's book 2 in the Ninth House or Alex Stern series. So if you haven't read Ninth House, it is a dark academia fantasy about a girl called Alex Stern whose life has kind of not gone to plan. The blurb says that she's thrown it away. Bit of a condemning word, but she is in a hospital basically and is given the second opportunity to go to this very prestigious university in America, Yale, I think? New Haven. I don't know where that is in America. You Americans can know. Somewhere in New Haven, she has to go to a university and spy on the elite societies there for her benefactor, the guy who's sponsoring her basically. So there's lots of mysterious things happening. The book opens on a murder. A girl's been murdered on campus, and she's kind of investigating it. There's a detective there who kind of doesn't want her to investigate, obviously, because she's not a detective. And then we also have this storyline from a couple of weeks ago where her mentor in the society that she joined, which is all about like ghosts and possessions and like seances and all that kind of thing. So it's a bit creepy anyway. But he disappeared. We don't know what's happened to him. So we're following that storyline as well. Darlington is his name. He was her mentor. And there's also this murder mystery going on. There's a lot going on in that book. And this second book, I think, follows more about the kind of what happened to Darlington, trying to find him and actually getting some answers to that. So that's very exciting. So the next book we have coming out is on January 18th, and that is Barrow of the Winter. This is the third book, another one in the series, sorry about that. Third book in the Hall of Smoke trilogy, which is by H.M. Long. This is a Norse-inspired mythology fantasy thing. So in the first book we follow this character called Heir, who has the power to obliterate her enemies by just screaming at them, which sounds pretty cool. Then, however, she is somehow banished because she refuses to follow her leader's orders. However, when she is banished to this mountain, her priesthood is obliterated by some raiders. So she has to win back her goddess's favour by atoning and defeating all these people that are trying to take over her land and her hometown and kind of fight them. Then the second book, I think, also follows Heir as she continues her journey. However, the third book seems to follow a different character. So the third book, we follow this character called Thray, who is the last daughter of Winter. So she travels to this place called Duamel, I think is how you pronounce it, to meet her half semi-demigod siblings, as this is the place where her father used to rule. However, it's kind of been desolated by this never-ending winter. So like all the crops have died, there's lots of like beasts that are taking over the place. Everything's kind of going to the crap. When her hometown, like where she's from, is like thriving and everything is like really good there, her brothers decide that actually they kind of want to take over. So she's got to balance wanting to protect her homeland but also being loyal to her brothers and like judging whether or not which one she wants to kind of back, because I don't think she can back both. And it's all about family, betrayal, and just fighting, I'm assuming, with Norse gods. Sounds pretty cool. So the next book we have coming out is on January 19th, and that is The God Killer by Hannah Kenner. This follows a girl whose family were destroyed by a zealous fire god, and now she makes her living by killing other gods. However, there is one god that she cannot kill, which is the god of white lies. So this god has tied its life to this noble knight, and they are now on the run from an assassin. She then joins them somehow on some unknown quest, travelling to the ruined city of Belendraden, I think. I'm going to go with Belendraden, where the last of the wild gods reside, and they have to get him a favour. Get a favour from him. That's the order of the words that I needed. So they are, chased by demons, there's a civil war going on, something dodgy is going on that's corrupting the world, and they have to obviously go and save it together. It's quite a short book, I have seen the proof of it. It doesn't look particularly long, but the cover is gorgeous, so I'm very excited for this one coming out. Next we have another kind of just fun, light-hearted one that I'm not sure a lot of like die-hard fantasy people will be after, but this one just seemed fun, so I threw it in there. But this one comes out on January 19th, and it is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. It's basically a romance with fairies in it, but I don't think they are themselves the fairies. So basically it follows this professor, Emily Wilde, who is very antisocial. She does not like people. She likes her dog and her books and the fairies that she studies. And she is writing the first encyclopedia on fairies, funnily enough. She has to travel to this kind of remote village where there's this dark, secret fairy that no one knows really a lot about, and decides that she doesn't want to interact with anyone in the village. However, her professional arch nemesis arrives, and he is a very charming, very like charismatic person, and charms the village and is her competitor in her career. Obviously, I think that they fall in love. Enemies to lovers kind of vibe we're getting across here. And like the quote that I really liked is why I kind of like threw it in there, because everyone loves dark academia at the moment, but this one, I kind of like it. So it's like, forget dark academia, give me instead this kind of winter sunshined, sharp-tongued and footnoted academia full of field trips and grumpy romance. It sounds cute, right? I like it. I think it sounds cool. So on January 28th, we have Duels Sin, which is the second book in the Illborn series. This book is by Daniel T. Jackson, and it sounds kind of complicated. I'm not sure. My friend loves this book and is begging me to read it. I haven't yet, but apparently it's one of the best books that she's read in a very long time, and I haven't seen it much on social media, so it's not highly read, I don't think, out in the whole booktube community, but she loved this book. So I'm going to read you the blurb because I don't really know how to summarise it. Long ago, the Lord Adul emerged from the deserts of the Holy Land, possessed with divine powers. He used these to forcibly unite the people of Anjal before his ascension to heaven. So I don't know what that means, really. Does that mean it didn't work? Did it work? Is the land corrupt now? Do we have a lot of tension between groups that didn't want to be united that he forced to unite? I don't know. Over 800 years later, in the medieval world which is threatened by war and religious persecution, 4 young men and women begin to develop supernatural abilities which are forbidden. Dun dun dun! Dramatic twist. I'm not really, it's always the way, isn't it? Magic's always forbidden. So, their lives are upheaved and they must confront the mysteries of the ethereal gate which they see in their dreams. So they must find out what this thing is in their dreams and why it connects their abilities. There is apparently love, lust, loss, all those kind of things running through it. There's this review from Pt.1, who absolutely loved the series as well. I think that's where my friend got the recommendation from. So it's an incredibly character-driven story with a heavy focus on faith, religious responsibility, survival, love, friendship, and leadership. He says that even just reading the prologue, you'll understand how great this book is. So the next book obviously continues on from the first book, and apparently everyone's excited that's read it. So there you go. So next we have a book that comes out on February 14th, and that is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi. And this is a gothic-infused story about marriage, betrayal, past histories kind of coming back on you. It's kind of like a fairy tale-esque vibe, gothic fairy tale thing. So this is Roshani's first debut adult book. She wrote few YA books like The Gilded Wolves and The Star-Touched Queen, which you might be familiar with. However, this is the first time she's delved into the kind of, I'm assuming because it's a bit darker, it's gone into the adult section. So I'm hoping it's pretty dark. It follows a girl called Indigo who's in this perfect kind of ideal relationship. You know, she's very successful as well. You know, her life is pretty good. However, in her relationship, she's got one condition, and that is that her husband does not ask her anything about her past. However, when an estranged aunt dies mysteriously, they have to go back to her family, childhood home, and he just can't resist asking some questions. You know, there's some goings on there. There's some weird things happening. Things start to unfurl about the childhood friend that Indigo had who suddenly went missing. The house begins revealing her secrets, putting strain on the marriage. Things, I don't know what happens. But it's apparently when fairy tales go dark, or like going back to the original fairy tales, you know, that kind of vibe when everything's not as good as it seems. So this apparently is a mix of the haunting atmosphere of Mexican Gothic and the dreamy enchantment of the invisible life of Addie LaRue. So I think it's got that kind of like soft fantasy element to it. I don't think it's very hardcore urban fantasy. It is apparently a darkly romantic page turner about love, lies, secrets, betrayal, and the stories we tell ourselves to survive. The next book we have coming out is on February 21st, and that is The Iron Wolf. This is by Siri Peterson, and this is a Norwegian translation. I think he wrote another quite successful trilogy called the Raven Rings trilogy. They're all based on Norse mythology and sound pretty damn good. I've never heard of them until researching this video, but I'm intrigued. I'd love to read more books about Norse mythology, and this one has firmly made it on the list. We follow our main character, Juva, who is a blood reader. So these blood readers have a very bad reputation. They're known for having their great sight. However, they're also very deceitful, swindlers. You know, no one likes them, and our main character, Juva, does not want to become one of them. However, her family is threatened by the Vidari, which are these weird, eerie creatures that just never age. So she has to go on a hunt to discover the legacy of the blood readers that apparently once changed the world, and she hopes will do it again. In order to survive, however, she must confront the childhood memories she has fought to forget. And it is a book filled with blood, desire, and addiction. Next, we have a book coming out on February 28th. This is obviously, I feel like this will be on everyone's, or most people's, or a lot of people's radar, or at least will know about it. And that is The Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon, and it is the prequel to Priory of the Orange Tree. So, it says a standalone prequel. I'm assuming this just means it's only once, like it's not a prequel trilogy, you know, it's a book in its own entity. I don't know if that means that you have to have read Priory of the Orange Tree to understand and read this book. In theory, I feel like as it's a prequel, you should be able to read it before Priory of the Orange Tree, and then read Priory. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. We have multiple points of view in this one. We have Tunuva, who is the sister of the Priory. For 50 years, she has trained to slay Wyrms? I don't know how you pronounce that word. But none have appeared since the Nameless One, and the younger generation is starting to question the Priory's purpose. Then up in the north, we have the Queendom of Innis, where Sabran has just married the new king, Horth, I think is the pronunciation, and saved both their kingdoms and queendoms from ruin. They have a daughter who I think is probably the person we're going to follow, Glorian, who stays in the shadows and likes it that way, and, you know, probably won't stay in the shadows throughout the book. I hope not, otherwise that's a bit boring. But there you go. Then we have the dragons to the east, obviously. We follow a character called Dumay, I think. She has spent her life in a Sychanese mountain temple trying to wake these gods. However, someone from her mother's past has come back into her life and is trying to ruin her or upend her fate. However, when a mountain, I'm assuming, volcano, erupts, everything is thrown into upheaval, and these women must, I think, come together or do something to battle the upheaval that is now ensuing. I'm not gonna lie, I can't remember much about the Pride of the Orange Tree. I read it when it first came out ages ago, so maybe I'll have time to reread it, or at least I'll have to read a long blurb, I think, to try and get myself back in the world, or just go in and see if you can read this a little bit like a standalone or a proper prequel and not know anything about the actual book. We'll see how that comes. Then on March 2nd, which we have, I think, probably my personally most anticipated book coming out, and that is The Adventures of Amina AlSirafi, and that is by S.A. Chakraborty, one of my all-time favourite people. Writers. I don't know what she's like as a person, I'm sure she's very nice, but I don't know her as a person. One of my all-time favourite people. Oh, I just did it again. All-time favourite person. No! What the heck? One of my all-time favourite writers. So, this follows pirate people. I love pirates. I just really want to read more about pirates. I don't know why, but I do. And I don't have many pirate books, so I feel like this was just meant to be. I don't know how else to explain it, but this was meant to be. This book was meant to come into my life. So, we follow Amina, who should be content with her life. You know, she's got the prestige, she's got the reputation of being this really, hardy pirate. You know, she should be okay with, settling down now. She's made money in her life. She's got children now. She should be okay to kind of leave the pirate life behind her. However, when someone from her past, I think is kidnapped, someone comes to her with a lot of money and asks her to help, and she can't turn it down. You know, there's money involved, there's a chance to get more reputation, and, you know, she can save an old friend, an old acquaintance at the same time. However, obviously it doesn't go to plan. It should be an easy job. It's not. Things happen and everything goes wrong, I'm assuming, and I'm just very excited for this book, and it just sounds so cool, and the cover is lovely. I think the cover is by the same designer, or the American cover is by the same designer as Pride of the Orange Tree. The UK cover is not, and I'm a little bit sad by it because I love the American cover and I want that cover, but I don't think I'm going to ever be able to have it unless I go to America, because it's very expensive to ship books over to here. So I will settle for the almost equally beautiful cover that is the UK cover, but yeah, there you go. Then on March 21st, we have the next book in the Left-Handed Booksellers of London series by I always say Gareth, but it's not. By Garth Nix, and this is called The Sinister Booksellers of Bath. It's set in a slightly alternate London, and the first book follows this girl who wants to find out more about her father, a man that she's never actually met. So she goes to this gangster figure to see if he'll know anything. However, before she can get any answers from this gangster dude, he is turned to dust by this person called Merlin. Merlin is a left-handed bookseller. So these are fighting booksellers. Right-handed booksellers sell books. Left-handed booksellers fight people. And he is a left-handed bookseller, so his extended family are these magical beings who police the magical and legendary world. So when it intrudes with the new world, they have to police it, basically. Does that make sense? They also run bookshops as well, but this quest Merlin is on is to find this old world criminal who used current world people to kill his mother. So he's on a quest to find his mother's killer. He teams up with his sister, who is a right-handed bookseller, and our character Suzanne, because their stories somehow merge and correlate and they have to work together, basically. And then I think the Sinister Bookstore just kind of follows on from how that left off. So I won't go into that one if you haven't read the first one, obviously, because it's going to be a bit of a spoiler. So we have our last adult book coming out on, well, it's not going to be the last one ever, but in this video, the one I will be discussing, the last book coming out on March 21st, and that is The Lies of the Ajungo by Moses Ozzy Utomi, and this is a debut novella, so I'm assuming it's going to be short. But it is inspired by African mythology, and it follows one boy's epic quest to bring back water to his city. This is set in the City of Lies, where you can't trust anything because it is the City of Lies, and the overruling kind of people cut out people's tongues when they turn 13. So our main character is about to turn 13 in a couple of days. However, he's not sure his mother, who is dying, I think, from thirst, can survive that long. So he makes a deal with his Oba, which is kind of the leader, and she will provide water for the mother if he leaves the city and goes on a journey to try and find water to bring back so that they can sell. So they sell water for profit, basically, which means that everyone is dying of thirst and their tongues are getting cut out. I'm not really sure how it all works together, but as it's a novella, I feel like it'll be intriguing. So moving on to our YA books coming out. This hopefully will be a quite slightly shorter section, as there's slightly less books in this section. But on the 3rd of January, we have Song of Silver, Flame Light Night by Emily Wen Zhao. This could be an adult book. It's shelved in 2 different things on 2 different sites. So Goodreads, people seem to be listing it as YA. In Waterstones, however, it's shelved in adult. Maybe a new adult book. It's on the border anyway. So we follow a character called Lan, who her land has been colonized by these people. They've killed her mother, outlawed her magic, and changed her name to Lan. She now spends her evenings as a son girl, which is the term for a courtesan in a courtesan in 19th century China, and she then spends her days kind of scavenging for anything else that she can find to kind of survive, basically. However, she has a mysterious mark on her arm. It's an untranslatable hint character that her mother burned on her as a last final dying act, and she obviously needs to find out what this is. She's very intrigued by it. So the things that she's searching for during the day are kind of like to try and understand and discover what this character means. She then meets a character called Zen, who is a practitioner, a fabled magician of the Last Kingdom. His magic is meant to be able to be drawn from like the demons that they kind of commune with. So it's a very old language magic thing that they didn't think existed anymore, and obviously is probably outlawed since other magic is outlawed in this place. Zin, however, recognises that Lin is actually a practitioner, and this mark on her arm is what's keeping her from being able to use her abilities. They in turn team up. Zen has never seen anything like this character, and so he takes her to his people, the practitioners, back in the Last Kingdom to try and find answers. They, however, I think are like a rebel group planning to overthrow this regime, and so they team up, and I think they're gonna try and overthrow the people. I'm assuming that's where it's going, but apparently there's lots of secrets. I think probably a romance is brewing between the two. I got that vibe from the prologue. No, from the blurb. We'll see if that's right or not, but there you go. That's one. It's got a beautiful cover as well, this book. Absolutely stunning. So, gorgeous cover. So, also coming out on the 3rd of January is another book I think a lot of people will be excited for. Personally, not so much just because I'm not a fan of this author, but she is very, very well loved, and that is Holly Black's Stolen Heir, which is another book in the elf, the Cruel Prince world, basically. So we follow quite a few characters. It has been 8 years since the Battle of the Serpent, and Lady Nor of the Court of Teeth has reclaimed the Ice Needle Citadel. I'm going to assume that everyone knows what this is, because you've probably read The Cruel Prince. I have no idea, so I'm just saying gibberish right now. She is using an ancient relic to create monsters of stick and snow who will do her bidding and exact her revenge. Shurin, Child Queen of the Court of Teeth and the one person with power over her mother, fled to the human world. So I'm assuming she's gonna overcome Lady Nor. She believes she's forgotten and lives feral in the woods until she's chased by the storm hag Bogdana. She's then, however, saved by the man she was promised to in marriage and had resented for years, Prince Oak. Oak is charming, beautiful, and manipulative. Of course, that is, I feel like, a trademark of Holly Black, or it's just the same as the Cruel Prince. He's on a mission that will lead him into the north, and he wants Surin's help. But if she agrees, it will mean guarding her heart against the boy she once knew and a prince she cannot trust, as well as confronting all the horrors she thought she left behind. So this sounds kind of similar-esque to the Cruel Prince, where we have, a cruel prince who we are trying not to fall in love with all his cruelness. So yeah, we'll see. The next book we have is coming out on January 10th, and that is The Daughters of Isbai by Daughter of Isbai, and that is the first book in a duology. So this is in a world inspired by Egyptian mythology, and we follow 2 women. The first one is Nahal, a spoiled aristocrat used to getting what she wants. There's elemental magic in this as well, so Nahal is our character. She's a water weaver, and she wants to be able to use her powers, but she can't because as a woman she can't go to formal education. Her parents also can't afford to send her because her dad has crippling debt from gambling, so maybe she's not quite used to getting what she wants. A bit controversial in the prologue there, actually. She is then kind of not sold, but like, is she sold? Forcibly married into a wealthy merchant family. Basically sold then. Her new spouse, Nico, is indifferent and distant and in love with another woman, who is our second main character, I think, Georgina. So Georgina has her own secret. She too is one of these elemental magic users. However, she is an earth weaver and cannot control her abilities at all. She has no money and no prospects. However, her one saving grace comes from the activities that she does with this rebel group called the Daughters of Isbai. So they are a radical women's rights group that are the front of a movement against the kind of ruling people. Their simple goal is just to have a say in their lives and not obviously be forced to marry people, for example. So Nico and the kind of two agendas of these women bring them together, and they are drawn in by the enigmatic leader of the group and have to do what's right. So I think there's a war looming. They have to fight for their rights. There's like, you know, all those kind of, it sounds like a very feminist forward book and has elemental magic in it. So on January 24th, we have The Spice Road coming out by Maya Ibrahim, which is the first book in a trilogy. This is set in an Abraham-inspired fantasy land and is fans for Sabaa Tahir and Elizabeth Lim. So I love Sabaa Tahir. I haven't read any of Elizabeth Lim, but she has very good recommendations behind her. So it is set in this world where there is a secret spice that's kind of sold on a black market, but this spice unleashes a hidden ability, an affinity that some people have when you drink its tea. So our main character Imani has the affinity for iron, which means she's a very good swords person and has built quite a reputation around herself for killing these monsters that lurk in her land. However, her brother is discovered to be stealing the source of this spice, and that apparently denotes to some kind of magic addiction. He runs away and escapes into the forest. She believes him to be dead and also leaves her kind of reputation in tatters because she was associated with this thief. She does, however, also mourn his loss and is conflicted by kind of what he does. So then when she finds out rumours that he might still be alive and selling this spice to people outside of the city, she then goes on a quest to find him, save him, redeem him. I don't know what her agenda is really. But she joins the mission that has gone on the hunt to kill him, I assume, with the ulterior ulterior motivation of actually saving him or just talking to him why he's done what he's done. She is accompanied by Taha, who is a powerful beast seer. He enthralls and enrages her, so I'm guessing it's love-to-hate romance brewing in somewhere in there. And basically, Imani just has to decide whether or not she wants to kind of be loyal to her brother or the city that she kind of lives in and serves. So on February 7th, we have The Seven Faceless Saints by M.K. Lobb. This is a romance revolution mystery entwined book with a lot going on, apparently. So it is a dark fantasy. It's a debut from our author with a murder and mystery twist and fans for Leah Bardugo and Kerry Minisalco. But the plot also sounds very similar to An Ember in the Ashes. So I think if you like Sabaa Tahir and that storyline, you'd also kind of like this. So, in this city, saints and their disciples rule with a terrifying kind of overruling power, quite a ruthless power. We follow our main character, Rosanna, whose father is actually killed by the military, and so she goes on a revenge trajectory to kind of overrule and not let this terribly corrupt system, survive. She wants to dismantle the system, basically. So, to do that, she joins a rebellion, but also there's a nemesis on the horizon, which is obviously the boy that she once loved. Damien Venturi, which also sounds, I swear, what's the main character in Ember? He's called Elias Venturis. Was this a fanfic of Ember in the Ashes? Okay, so the plot sounds, one, very similar to Ember in the Ashes. Two, our main character is called Damien Venturi, whereas the main character in Ember in the Ashes is Elias Venturis. I think this might have been. He apparently is, I'll continue with the plot and you can see what I mean. So he is the youngest captain in the Palazzo, which is this like military kind of security that is expected to be he's expected to be very ruthless and strong and very loyal and committed to this corrupt regime that rules. So 3 years spent fighting a never-ending war, however, has changed his opinion and left him with deeper scars than he wants to admit. So he no longer agrees with the regime, basically, I think is what it's saying. And so when a serial killer goes through the city, they must partner up, Damien and Rosanna, to find the killer. So they've got to team up to find the killer. They sound so similar, and the names are so similar. I feel like it must have something to do with Ember in the Ashes, or is at least heavily inspired by it. So the next book I have comes out on March 2nd, and that is Among the Dead by Leslie Livingston. This is a Celtic YA fantasy set in the ancient kingdom of Heir, inspired by the legend of the first true Queen of Ireland. So this is set in a world where magic has been banished by the king and held captive, not captive, but like hoarded by his druid priests. Our young character Neve is the youngest daughter of the king, and Ronan is a druid's apprentice turned thief, making a living from stealing stolen spells. They both have a mutual hatred for the druids, and they decide to partner up and help make Neve the rightful throne sitter. What's it called? Make Neve the rightful queen of the kingdom, basically. And they've got to do that hopefully with magic or something like that. So yeah, they partner up basically. They have to go to where magic is not banished, find a way to come back and overturn the king, I think, and make her the queen. So on March 16th, we have The Foxglove King, which is by Hannah Witton. This is another potentially adult fantasy book. Again, it's Goodreads shelved as YA, whereas on Waterstones it is adult fantasy. Another probably new adult, verging onto, if you like, there's probably nothing explicit or overly violent in it. It just might have some kind of darker tropes or like themes running through it. It's a new fantasy romance from the same author that wrote For the Wolf, which has been quite popular. We sell quite a lot of it in the shop at least, or you know, a decent amount. We follow our character called Law, who when she was 13 escaped the cult that she was a part of, or maybe indoctrinated in, or born in, I don't know, from the catacombs that are beneath the city of Delair. It has been 10 years since, and she has lived by one rule, and that is obviously not to be found by them. However, that is harder said than done, since her magic is tied to the city, and so she can't leave that city. Morton, which is the magic of death, and her magic is a highly priced and illicit commodity in the city. She, I think, uses her magic to make money. However, when something goes wrong with that, her secret is revealed and her identity is kind of jeopardized. She is taken by the Presk Mort, which is a group of warrior soldiers who is employed by the king to use the magic mortem, and I'm assuming hunt down the people that are using it illicitly, legally. So she expects to die, however the king has a different plan. He wants her to use her magic to help save the outskirting villages, which are all being killed off by some mysterious thing, you know. We don't know why. So he wants her to use her magic to find out why. She in turn is obviously thrust into the king's court and is obviously overwhelmed by all the politics and court politics that goes on. Love a bit of court politics. It's always a good time. And she is guarded by Gabriel, which is a duke turned monk, and continually running up against Bartisan, the king's ne'er-do-well heir. I don't know what that means. There might be a little love triangle going on here. I feel like that's in the makings. You know, we've got Gabriel and Bastian, you know, maybe a bit of a Throne of Glass kind of court vibe triangle thing going on. So Law tangles in the politics, religion and forbidden romance as she attempts to navigate the debauched and opulent society. However, her past from the catacombs starts to creep up on her and obviously throws a bit of a spanner in the works, and more things go wrong, probably, most likely. Coming out on March 21st, we have Lucha of the Night Forest by Taylor K. Major. So this is a fantasy that follows a girl who will do anything to protect her sister, even if that means striking a dangerous bargain. We have dark forests, forgotten magic, and a heart-stopping queer romance. The blurb is very short. It goes, a scorned god, a mysterious acolyte, a forgetting drug, a dangerous forest. One girl caught between the freedom she always wanted and a sister she can't bear to leave behind. Under the cover of the night forest, will Lucha be able to step into her own power, or will she come consumed by it? This gorgeous and fast-paced fantasy novel from acclaimed author is brimming with adventure, peril, romance, and family bonds, and asks what it means for a teen girl to become fully herself. It sounds pretty good. So, that is the video. Thank you for watching. I hope this hasn't been too long. If there's any more that you are excited for and you think that I would like, please let me know below. Thank you again for watching. I hope you had a good time. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment down below. and I'll see you in the next video very soon.